Hey folks, this is Football Tactics. Football Tactics is what you get when you combine XCOM and football. And by football, I mean real football, not hand egg. This game is in early access right now for $15 and it is a lot of fun. I put in about 21 hours so far, and while the game does have a lot of problems, I think it's definitely worth it if you like football or tactical games. There simply aren't enough football games, especially on PC. I don't know how it is nowadays, but even just a few years ago, we were still getting the last gen ports of FIFA and PES instead of the modern gen ones. And even then, FIFA's always been arcadey, and the last time I played a good PES game was back on the PlayStation 2. From the managerial games, we pretty much only have Football Manager, and that game requires you to quit your job and no-life it to play it. Aside from that, everything else is shit. There was a game that came out a few years ago called Lords of Football, which tried to mix a very primitive version of The Sims with simple managerial aspects, but it was crap. I was thinking of reviewing it just to bash it, but for some sort of reason it now micro stutters every 30 seconds. At least it does so on my GTX 1070, regardless of settings and resolution. Perhaps it fears my wrath. Now comes Football Tactics, a game that uses simple RPG, managerial, and tactical mechanics to create a rather lovely experience. In Football Tactics, you're a coach of a shit team that's in the 4th division of your country's league. Your job is to get the team into the top of the Premier League, as well as win the National and European Cup. Being a $15 indie game, obviously this game is not licensed, but it does have Steam Workshop support, and there are plenty of mods out there that do put in real team names and players for various countries. The best part is that even if you're not playing as a team from that particular country, you can still load the mods into your game. So when you're playing in the European Cup, you'll be playing against real teams, such as Chelsea instead of, let's say generic London FC. Some of these mods are out of date, which actually came as a positive surprise for me. My favorite team is Dynamo Kiev, and the last time the Ukrainian mod was updated was back in November, which occurred before Shavkovsky and Husiev retired. When you select a team, your player stats and age are randomly generated, and their stats will always be pretty low. To be honest, I did spend around 15 minutes restarting my game over and over again so that I could get Shavkovsky, Husiev, and Yarmolenko as young as possible. Shavkovsky has always been my favorite footballer ever since the penalty shootout between Ukraine and Switzerland at FIFA 2006. He played for Dynamo Kiev his entire career and retired at the age of 40. Husiev, on the other hand, almost died on the field and was pussy-whipped by his wife until retiring at a young age of 33. Meanwhile, Yarmolenko is only a year older than I am, and while he was destined to become a great forward, I was destined to live in a basement and be depressed. Once you've selected your country and selected or created your team, off you go, starting in your country's amateur league. As nice as the mods are in the point of putting real players and teams into the game, they are kind of pointless, as the best way to improve your team is not to improve your existing squad, but to sell off older players, sign younger ones, and invest in your team's youth league. This youth league randomly generates a very young player for you, generally around 17 to 18 years old, every 6 months. The more money you put into the youth league, the higher the level of the player will be. Older players, on the other hand, all choose to retire at the age of 34. You can still sell them off at 33, but at 34 they're worthless. If you want, you can prolong their contract until they reach the age of 40. But you need to use 200 fame to do so. Gold and fame are the two currency systems this game uses. Gold is used to upgrade your stadium and youth league. I've already explained the youth league, but with an upgraded stadium you get more seating capacity, which in turn gives you more money as you sell more tickets. Well, as long as your team is popular. Winning games increases your fan base, whereas losses and draws decrease it. In general, there isn't much of a point to upgrade the stadium unless you have enough fans that will buy those tickets for those new seats. Aside from tickets, you also gain gold from sponsors. Every season you are approached by 3 companies who offer you cash for performing some things, such as, goals or wins, or reaching number 1 in the division, or even winning the National Cup. Fame, on the other hand, is much harder to acquire. You get it mostly from goal differences in matches, and if you win against a team that is rated higher than you are. At the end of the season, if you are ranked highly in your division, you also get some fame as a reward. Fame is used for the majority of your team's upgrades. Not only can you use it to keep a retiring player on your team until the age of 40, but it is also used to increase the amount of experience points your players earn, your bench earns, as well as reducing the age and increasing the amount of players available during the transfer window at the free agent market. Each position has its own experience bonuses from fame, so you need to upgrade each one individually. My team started out with 4 midfielders, so logically I put more points into upgrading the experience that position earned as opposed to the forwards, defenders, and goalkeepers. One important thing to note about fame is whenever you use it to upgrade something, the cost of all future upgrades increases every single time you use it. So for example, if upgrading goalkeeper experience costs 100 fame, the next time you want to upgrade anything that uses it, it'll cost you like 120. Despite the game pushing you to use younger players, I was stubborn and used as much of my original roster as possible. While I did not have enough fame to prevent Danilo Silva from retiring, I did have enough to keep Husev until 40. And he'll be retiring in my save about 7 months from now, which is how I would have preferred things to happen in the real world. Alright, enough about the upgrades and rosters, let's talk about the actual gameplay. Football Tactics is turn-based. Match lasts 48 turns and each team is given 3 moves. Each move costs a turn, but you can also get a free move by successfully using skills. When your players reach level 10, they can learn a skill. It takes them 1 year to learn it, and the skill selection is random. You have no control over it. The skill can then be upgraded 2 more times, and each upgrade takes 2 years to finish. Once the player reaches level 60, or if you use 60 fame, you unlock a second skill. You'll be seeing these skills from the gameplay, but just to make a quick example, let's say your opponent has possession of the ball, and it's your turn. If you were to simply tackle the player, it would waste one of your moves. But if you had a player who had the sliding tackle skill, if they were to use it successfully, not only would you get possession of the ball, but you would still retain all of your moves for the remainder of the play. These skills can also be chained together, which prolongs your possession of the ball and gets you closer to scoring. For example, you can use a long pass skill as a defender to get the ball moving to your midfield. If you do it through your opponent's legs, you get a free move. Then with the midfielder, you can use a layoff pass skill. It passes the ball to a tile ahead of the attacker, but the attacker also runs to the tile to catch it. Once again, if done through an opponent's legs, you get another free move. You can then reposition your forward as close to the goal as possible to ensure maximum accuracy. Accuracy is the most important stat for your forwards, as it is used for scoring goals. Likewise, for midfielders, passing is the most important, and defense is the most important for defenders and goalkeepers. You can select what stat you want your individual players to level, but it doesn't really work. One of the game's many questionable aspects is that not only are all players randomly generated, but they have random hidden traits. For example, my midfielder, Tsikhankov, had a higher accuracy stat than his passing, despite him being selected to only train in passing. Likewise, Husiev had a lot of points into control, which he was never selected to level. To make matters worse, these hidden traits apply to skills as well. You have no idea what skills your player will have access to until you can unlock them at level 10, and there's a good chance they're going to get a pretty shit skill with no way of knowing beforehand. These hidden traits also create stars out of some players. My 2 forwards are Marias and Yarmolenko. Despite Marias being a lower level than Yarmolenko, his accuracy is still at least 10 points higher. You know how the NBA 2K games have a potential rating for your players? This game seriously needs one. When it comes to strategy, there's a complete lack of guides or tips available on YouTube or even the Steam forums, but when it comes to the amateur league, you don't really need any. Most of the teams are even worse than yours, so my advice is just to brute force the motherfucker. Pass to your forward, try to score, and more often than not, it'll work. There's 2 types of shots, precision and power. Precision shot is more accurate, but if it fails, the opponent gets possession. The power shot is less accurate, but it always bounces off the opponent, so the ball can either return to you, or you can get a second chance via corner kick. Another thing to note about skills is to ignore the few guides for this game that are available out there. They all say not to teach useless skills to your players. Guys, the thing is that this is the only skill that they can learn. You either learn it or you don't learn it, and it doesn't make any sense not to learn it. Like, I'm sorry that the game decided to randomly generate the slide tackle skill for my forward. It's not like he has any other option other than to learn it. And even then, it can be helpful to steal the balls from defenders. With that said, the game is also full of bullshit. By bullshit, I mean like, you know when in XCOM you got your guy with a shotgun right in front of some little shitty alien, and he's pointing the barrel right at the alien's skull, and the game tells you have a 99.99% chance to hit, but instead the fucker somehow misses point blank and ends up getting slaughtered next turn. That's what I mean by bullshit, and this game is full of it. People like to call it RNG. I like to call it bullshit because these people never took statistics classes. Whenever you pass, tackle, shoot, etc., there's always a bullshit number generated. For tackling, it's your player's defense stat versus the opponent's control stat. For shooting a goal, it's accuracy versus defense. So if your forward has an accuracy stat of 100 and the goalkeeper has a defense stat of 100, that means for both players, any number between 1 to 100 will be generated for this action. Fellas, I took statistics twice in college, once for political science and once again for psychology. I understand that statistically speaking that you have a higher chance to get eaten by a shark and struck by lightning as opposed to winning the lottery, but I don't think these devs took statistics, as the bullshit in this game, more often than not, rolls lower numbers than higher ones. And I think they know this, as there is a setting when you create a new game that starts the bullshit roll from 30% of the stat instead of at 1. You can only select this for new saves, and you cannot change it once it's been selected. But that is okay, because as you'll see, the bullshit is almost always in your favor. I got out of the amateur league pretty quickly. I don't remember if it was the first or second season, but it was simple. But once I hit the third league, I felt that I hit a brick wall. I simply couldn't win any games. I got kind of pissed, so I started simulating. And to my surprise, my team kept winning almost all the time, scoring using my midfielders, Husiev and Buyalski, who are midfielders with barely any accuracy. I then tried playing, but I still kept losing, so instead of simulating, I decided to use the watch feature, where I watch how the simulation is played out in real time. And that is when I discovered just how overpowered skills are, and why my team right now is first place in the Premier League, despite only having a 3-star rating, whereas all the other teams are at least 4.5 stars. The game does a bad job at explaining things. Aside from the introductory tutorial that pretty much teaches you the basics of how to move, pass, and shoot, the rest of the tutorial comes from coach's notes that you unlock as days go by. And it's basically screenshots with text. Videos or gameplay would have been much more helpful, as some of these explanations don't really explain anything at all. What makes matters worse is that the game doesn't even explain how corner kicks work. They do not tell you what stat is important when it comes to corner kicks. I had to look up on the forums as to why I kept losing all corner kick challenges. The stat that is important is control. It's your control versus the opponent's control. Then I realized that Husiev and Buyalski had the highest control stats on my team. Husiev also had cannon shot skill, while Buyalski had rainbow feint. This is how the AI kept winning games for me. Oh, and watch this. 2 cannon shots in a row, one after another. Distance, accuracy, goalkeeper's defense rating, nothing matters. The only thing that matters is if you have the skill or you don't. Sometimes the goalkeeper does have a defensive skill where they can catch these shots, but it is rare. And even if they do have it, they can still fail to catch it. Rainbow feint is the same, as your guy just fools the goalkeeper by dribbling the ball into the net. Without a doubt, the most OP skill has to be Olympic kick. It is extremely rare. I've only seen it maybe 3 times. But it allows the guy who does the corner kick to score directly into the net. And the only defense you have against it is the sheer luck of a bullshit roll. So yeah, once I watched how the AI abused my skills, I got much better in the game. And then I finally stopped trying to use regular football logic, such as preparing my formation against the opponents and other things. There's no such things such as offsides, and midfield formations are so vastly different that not all the teams even start from the center of the field. One thing that kept me losing was that if the opponent had possession, I tended to move my midfielders and defenders in position to defend. These were all wasted moves, and you can actually give up your turn, which does not reduce the amount of turns available on the field. This is a good tactic to use if you're losing and you still want a chance to win. Unfortunately, for a game that's called Football Tactics, the game isn't really all that tactical. It's basically get the ball to your forwards and try to brute force for a goal. If they fail, you can recover from a power shot or a corner kick, or at the very least, put the defense out of position so that when you return, you can abuse a skill. While the game isn't all that strategic, it is incredibly addicting and so much fun to play. I kept telling myself just one more match, and next thing I know, hours have passed by. Matches only last around 5 minutes, and the higher league that you're in, the more experience points you earn. With the current bullshit system implemented, you'll win against much better teams, and you'll reap even higher rewards for being the underdog. Your players will level up constantly, and watching your player stats rise by 30 points after just a few games is extremely satisfying. On the early access page, the devs state that the game is complete, but they will continue adding new features. I honestly would not call this game complete. It needs a lot of fine-tuning, rebalancing, much better AI, and more depth. Especially the AI. If I can view my opponent's player's information, there is no reason why they cannot view mine and change their formation, knowing that I have two guys with cannon shot that will cripple their existing defensive line. The opponent AI also never substitute their players, unless they're forced due to injury, so they will keep people playing with no stamina. However, the devs are extremely responsive on the forums, are very receptive to feedback, and are continuing to improve the game and adding more features in. This is an extremely promising title. When I'm off from work on Wednesdays, this is what I do. I wake up, I have breakfast. Then I play this game all day until I get hungry again. Then I eat, and I play again until I get hungry. Then I eat, and then I play again until I go to sleep. It's been a long time since I played a game that has provided me so much fun. And from the looks of it, it can only get better. It's 15 bucks. It's cheap, and I highly recommend it.